Hello everyone. This is a recording to discuss, because I'm not going to show you me doing it because it'll get too noisy and it'll be extremely boring. So it's discussing me making some fermented food. And this came about because I'd said to my other colleagues in the posse that this was something that I'd started doing, and they said, oh, that would make an interesting blog. So there is a blog to go along with this, and just to be really confusing, in the blog I talk more about sauerkraut, and in this one I'm actually making kimchi because that's what I was about to make today. So fermented foods have been around for centuries, possibly even thousands of years. We still eat them every day, possibly without even realizing it, because wine isn't wine, that sort of thing, obviously. But how about tea, cheese, bread, chocolate? Yep, all of those made by different fermentation processes. And basically, what is it? It's fermentation it's encouraging the growth of good bacteria to transform the flavour and the shelf life of ingredients. That's basically what it was invented to do. It prolonged the life of foods. Coming up to the end of the summer, when you had a nice glut of fruit and vegetables, you could ferment them, keep them nice and safe. You've got food for the winter. The actual fermentation process, the breaking down, actually releases and tenderizes as well. So you get a tangy flavour. And because it's in a sour environment, it keeps all those nasty bacteria under control. Win-win situation. You've got food for longer through the winter and it's protected by itself. Brilliant. Now, at the moment, there is quite a lot of investigation going on into fermentation. It seems to I'd say it's probably been the last 10 years or so, but it seems to be taking a step, going even faster, is what I'm trying to say. And there's lots of research and everything going on out there in the big wide world about how fermented foods can be good for us. So in the list that I found, there was that they could help with digestion. So if you had any digestive problems, IBS, anything like that, they could be of use. Obviously, everyone's an individual, so some people they'll help, some people they won't. Again, there are studies going on because they believe that the two main strains of the bacteria, which I won't even try to pronounce, I've been practicing before I came on here and I still can't say it, so I'm not even going to bother, but there's two main ones. The first one I can just about say the first, lactobacillus, and then it's got another name after it, and the second one I'm just not even going to try. I've been practicing, it doesn't work. And they have been investigated in helping with the symptoms of anxiety and depression, which is quite interesting. Other studies are looking at the links between probiotic strains and weight loss. Again, I think that's possibly because there's an awful lot of obesity in the world at the moment. So, as I say, it just seems to have taken a step forward suddenly in all the investigations that are going on about this. But there we go. It could just be me just suddenly looking. They've also been linked to lowering heart disease. I'm just trying to think if there was anything else that I read about. Don't think so. I think those were the sort of like the main health things. What I will say is one of the most important things when you are doing this is to make sure that your containers are sterile. They need to be glass or ceramic. You can't do this in plastic. So if you've got a dishwasher that actually goes to that temperature, then you can sterilize them in a dishwasher. However, most domestic dishwashers, so I found out when I was investigating, don't actually go to a high enough setting. So what you need to actually do is get your jars and wash them thoroughly in soapy water, leave them to air dry, and then pop them in the oven. Temperature roughly about 160 in a fan on a gas. I can't remember on the other one, sorry. But yeah, and put them in there for 15 minutes and then leave them to cool, and they're ready to use. So I'm really excited because I've been doing this now for a little while. What I have been using are large normal jam jars. This was originally a pickle jar of some sort. But yeah, my larger jam jars I've been using to do my fermenting. But I've actually treated myself to some proper jars, and I'll explain what I mean by proper. They are called fermentation jars, and they are available on Amazon and everywhere else. But I would suggest only getting them if you actually intend to do this as a regular thing, because otherwise you can just use normal jars. The only thing is I would make sure that they have got a screw top. You could use kiln jars, but I tend to do it with this, and I'll explain why. So once you've got everything ready and you've done all your preparation, you're going to, so for sauerkraut, because sauerkraut, kimchi has got a lot of ingredients. Well, say a lot. It's got more than sauerkraut, so that's why you're getting a thing about sauerkraut, and I'm actually cooking or preparing kimchi. So for a sauerkraut, you need head of cabbage. Green, white, red, totally up to you. 2% weight of the cabbage in sea salt. And then the optional parts are either a tablespoon of fennel, which is my preference, or a tablespoon of caraway. And the only reason I say I prefer the fennel is because my husband doesn't like caraway. So actually, I haven't actually tried with caraway, but you could do. Or you could do a mix of your chosen seed with peppercorns to a 1 tablespoon thing, if you wanted. Or you can leave those out altogether. You don't have to add them. I do, because when I first tried making sauerkraut and I just did it with the plain cabbage, it was very bland. It was all right. It was tangy. It was sauerkraut, but I just found it very bland, which is why when I found this other recipe that actually said you could add in either fennel seeds or caraway seeds, I think there were other things on there. Those are the only ones I've copied down at the time, with peppercorns if you wanted. That's why I went with that, because I just thought, oh, I've got both of those in the cup. Let's have a see. And fennel's the one that's 1. So yeah, so you literally remove the outer leaves from the cabbage. You cut the cabbage into quarters. You take out the middle heart bit, and then you slice the quarters into fine strips. Sounding good so far? Yeah. So then you place all of that cabbage into a large mixing bowl. And then you weigh, well, having weighed the bowl first, you then weigh the cabbage, because that's where you get your 2% of weight for salt. So the weight of your cabbage multiplied by 0.02, that gives you your weight of salt to then put on top. Preferably sea salt, but you can use any coarse. It's got to be coarse salt. Sea salt seems to be the main preference for most of these recipes. So you sprinkle all that salt over the cabbage, and then with making sure that your hands are absolutely clean, or if you've got gloves that you use, rubber gloves or whatever that you only use for cooking, you can use those. You do for the kimchi because of the chilies. So yeah, I've got some a box of gloves that I only use for making the kimchi. And with sauerkraut, you just squeeze and squeeze and squeeze and squeeze and massage your cabbage for about 10 minutes. It's quite a good mindfulness exercise, I found. I have tend to find. So yeah, so for 10 minutes, you massage your cabbage. You'll actually know that it's changing. You'll feel the consistency of it changing. The salt would draw the water out of the cabbage, and it'll create its own briny texture to it. And then you place it to one side. I drape a tea towel, clean tea towel, over the top of the bowl, and you just leave it to sit for about 30 minutes. And then you give it another stir, and then you start to pack it into your sterilised jars. I say jars because that is only, I think, I used 3 of this size. I don't know what size it is, which isn't very handy. But I think it was 3 of these when I did the last lot of sauerkraut. And you pack it down. You pack it down really tight. You want all the air bubbles out. So you put in a spoon, you pack it down. You put in a spoon, you pack it down. You make sure that it is completely wedged. There are no air pockets anywhere. Pack it down, pack it down. And what you want to end up with is it's so packed down that there is a little layer of brine above it. So it's underneath the brine. And then you're going to put it to one side, and 24 hours later, you're going to take your lid off and you are going to push down again, making sure that it's all back down again, and put your lid on. And each day after that, you're going to, it's called burping, burping the jar. Isn't that fun? So yeah, every day after that, you burp the jar, basically because it's going to start fermenting. It's going to start letting off those gases. And if you don't burp it, it's going to explode at some stage. So yeah, so every day you just literally, and this is why I preferred to using these rather than the kilner, because with the kilner you've got to lift it, whereas with this you're just unscrewing it and putting it back, and you hear you'll hear it as you do that, but you're not actually opening it to the air, which you would do with a kilner jar. So that's why I went with these. My actual jars that I've got now have these lids. The one for the kimchi is just cooling in the oven, so I don't want to get it out yet. So yeah, so they've got these, and it's got its own little burping thing. So you literally just lift that, and then you just press it down. Isn't that cute? Sorry, I get excited by the strangest things. So yeah, so after about 7 days, you, or even before, if you've got quite a warm kitchen, or wherever you put it, you don't have to put it in an airing cupboard. You just need to put it somewhere where you remember where it is, obviously, so that it doesn't explode. So yeah, I just put mine down the end of the kitchen there. If your kitchen is quite warm, then you might need to start checking it after 4 or 5 days. But definitely by day 7, you start clean fork, take a little bit out quickly and test to see whether it's got to the right consistency and tanginess for you. Fermentation depends on, or the length of fermentation does depend on the heat of the room. So yeah, it can be quicker, can be slower. By day 14 at the latest, even in a cold kitchen, it should be just about done. And then how do you halt the fermentation? Very simple. You put it in the fridge. Ta-da, done. So yeah, you just pop the whole thing in the fridge and leave it there. Now what I did was, because these obviously are quite large jars, and I didn't want to, then start using a large jar with people putting spoons and things in and out. So I then transferred some, and this is what I'll do with these bigger jars, because the actual fermentation jars that I've got now are 1.5 litres, they're huge. So yeah, I will decant into smaller jars. Actually, there you go. There's a show and tell. that's the little bit that's left in the fridge for this jar, and I've got another full one of these that hasn't been touched. It's still sealed. But yeah, it stops the fermentation process. Will keep in the fridge sealed, supposedly, for 3 months or longer. The signs that it's gone off are not a little white film. Sometimes a little white film can apparently develop, and that's apparently safe. I haven't seen that yet. I haven't done this for long enough to say whether I've seen it. I haven't seen it yet. But the things that they say in all of the bits that I've been reading about this are that if it has any black or green mold, chuck it. It's not even worth trying if you see that. But yeah. So what is a witch talking about sauerkraut and kimchi for? Because they have magical properties. It's a kitchen witch thing. So for your sauerkraut, obviously you've got cabbage, moon magic, protection, prosperity, fertility, love, releasing, salt, cleansing, purification, protection. If you're like me and you're going to use fennel seeds, then you've got healing, purification, protection, courage, confidence, fertility, initiation, growth, and new beginnings. Now, kimchi. I will briefly talk about the kimchi, honest. As I said, I don't want to make it in front of you because it is going to, because I chop it and I've got a little chopper thing. So yeah, it's going to get noisy and it's going to get, yeah, it's not worth it. So a head of Chinese leaf cabbage. So mine, I started, so with this, you chop it up into shreds again, but you can make them thicker shreds. And you make up 1 litre of brine. So you use 1 tablespoon of sea salt to 1 litre of water. Put your, I'm looking over there because it's sitting over there waiting. So you put your Chinese leaf in your bowl, pour over the brine, mix it up, put a bit of cling film or a tea towel or something over the top, and you leave it to sit overnight. So I did my cabbage last night. Cabbage, we've already said the magical properties of those, but in case anybody wants those again, that although it's Chinese cabbage, it's still cabbage. So I'm still going on, it still felt the same. So I'm still going with the moon magic, the protection and prosperity, the fertility, love, and the releasing. You're going to need 2 carrots, grated or finely chopped, clarity, fertility, and passion. A bunch of spring onions, again, chopped, but not finely. You can leave these quite large. Not large, but yeah, in reasonable pieces, I'd say. What's that, about 1 centimetre? So passion, releasing, and fertility. Radishes. I don't know if these have got different names in America or anywhere, but that's a radish. So 100 grams of those, chopped finely. And for radishes, you've got protection, passion, and happiness, and ginger. So it's 100 grams. 100 grams. Lots of ginger. Love ginger. So 100 grams of ginger, again, finely. Well, no, chopped, because the ginger and some of the other things I'll come to in a minute, all get put into and made into a paste. Hence why you need cloves. So yeah, 6 garlic cloves. So for garlic, you've got healing, protection, hex breaking, removing of negative energy, lust, strength, courage, depression. Yeah. Shallots, again, they're just a form of onion, but a different form. So the garlic, the shallots, and the ginger will go into this paste. So shallots, passion, releasing, fertility. And then you come to, now I've played around with this particular recipe because when I first did it, I followed it exactly. And it had 2 red chilies chopped. Now I quite like hot spicy food. This was whoa. So the second one that I did, I cut it down to 1 chili, and it was still a bit whew. So I've actually, for today, decided to actually leave the actual fresh chilies out altogether, and I'm going to just put in, and it says either 1 to 3 chili flakes or cayenne pepper. So I'm going to put in possibly 1.5 chili flakes, which I didn't use the last 2 times because I'd put in the fresh chilies, with 1.5 tablespoonfuls of cayenne pepper, and just see how that balances this particular batch out. So yeah, for those, the magical properties are creativity, energy, power, protection, passion, and hex breaking. So yeah, so that will be my kimchi. And again, so you mix it all together. That's when you've made your paste of your shallots and the ginger and the garlic cloves and the spices. You then have to put everything in the bowl and massage again for about 10 minutes again, and then you start packing it down into the jar, making sure there's no air pockets, putting the lid on the jar. And now I've got my little burpee thing. So yeah, as from tomorrow I will start burping, push it down, yes, tomorrow, and then as from the following day I'll be burping it. So yeah, all in all, I hope that you have enjoyed this. On the written blog there are lots of Rachel's blogs about some of these ingredients too, as well as books and further reading. So yeah, please do make a comment if you do this, or you're going to give it a try, and I'll speak to you again.